Yep. Good morning, everyone. So, in our previous class, we learned about how data binding works in React. So, we discussed about data binding. So, React data binding and difference generally in JavaScript for data binding, you need the DOM methods and event binding. But in React, data binding, you saw a simple concept. So we do that by using data binding is done by using data binding expression. Data binding expression, which is defined by using this block representation. And one more important thing we learned. So how to use state. So what is use state? We discussed about state. So last session we learned about what is state, why we need state in any web application, why we have to use state in web application. Because web applications are stateless. Web applications use a protocol called HTTP, and HTTP is a stateless protocol. What does it means? Stateless protocol means it cannot remember information between requests. And to make it remember information between requests, we need various state management techniques. There are so many state management techniques. We have client-side state management and server-side state management. And in React also, there are so many state techniques. You will learn various. In that one, we discussed don't use variables for storing the data. Why? Because variables are immutable and component needs all mutable. And for that, we can use state. So in state, you can store the data and you can use the data across any number of requests. So here, last session, I explained how to configure the state. So we have a constant, we have getter and a setter. And use state, we are configuring the state. And whatever value you want, you can initialize. So here, some important questions are there. So the frequently asked question is, so can we use var or let to declare state in React? Because wherever you see people use const for declaring a state, can we use var or let to declare a state? So answer for this is yes, we can, but not recommended. So you can use var or let to declare state, but it is not recommended. Now the question is why it is defined with const. Why state is defined with const? So why not let or var? So initialization. Initialization is mandatory for state. Initialization is mandatory for state. So remember, initialization is mandatory for state, not for its value. State initialization is mandatory. Initialization is mandatory for state. So what does it means? You have to initialize state at the time of creating component. You have to initialize state at the time of creating component. Hence, const is recommended. Hence, const is recommended. Why not var and let? You know. So var or let, var or let may skip initialization. Var or let may skip initialization. So which is not recommended for state. Initialization is mandatory for state. So whenever you start a component, you have to make sure that state is ready. After component starts, you cannot make the state ready. State must be ready at the time of starting the component itself. Once component is started, you cannot configure the state. That means assignments are not possible. So that is the reason initialization is mandatory. So what we do, we declare by using const. Actually, var and let also you can use, but it is not recommended. It will lead to a lot of technical issues. That means in future, lot of technical problems will come, especially when you are dealing with state. That's the reason it is always recommended to use this, right? Now, next important point is we can configure state, but doubt in interviews they ask is then how I can assign any value if you use const, because const will not allow assignment. So another major question asked is how you can assign a value into state if you declared using const. How you can assign a value into state if you declared using const. So here, these are all regular questions. Even at experience level also, we have seen these type of questions for React people. So why const is required and how you will assign if it is const, right? Actually, state will not assign values. It initializes memory every time. It initializes memory every time using a setter that allows to store data that allows to store data. State will not assign values. It initializes memory every time. So actually, I will show you the syntax. For example, we have constant username, we use const username and or say name and a set name. One is a getter, another one is a setter. And how do you define use state? And here we are storing some value into this. Now, already a value is initialized by name John. We want to replace the value. If you want to replace the value by using set name, you learn JavaScript. In JavaScript, how you use a setter into a setter, you will assign a value. Into setter, you assign the values. That means how do we set the setters is you set by assigning a value. You assign any new value into the setter. That generally you know in JavaScript. Actually, in JavaScript, how you use a setter, let's take a HTML page. Yeah. Suppose you are having a class demo. In this class, we have a product name. And actually, this is some underscore product name. It is a property. We have a getter product name and it should return. So this dot underscore product name. We need a setter product name. It will take the new value and it will assign that into this underscore product name is equal to new value. This is how JavaScript getters and setters are designed. You learned in JavaScript the classes, how they define. Now we create an object for the demo class. Through that object, you can access the setter. Setter is what? Product name. Into that, you can assign a value. So you can assign a value into it. That is how we assign values into a property by using setters in JavaScript. This is your general JavaScript setter approach. But when you define this product name, actually this is defined with var or let, then it allows assignment. But if you defined a const, then it will not allow this syntax. Assignment is not possible. That means you cannot assign. So this is invalid. Then how do you set a value? To set a value, what we do? This setter will allocate memory again. Into the memory, we will pass the new value. Now this is valid. What is difference between the above syntax and below? Above what you are doing, you are trying to assign and constant cannot allow. Constant will not allow assignment. In the second, you are trying to allocate memory again, which is possible. Last session I showed you. we can reinitialize the memory and we can send a new value. That means now into this, we can send new value. What is difference between the first one and second one? First one is assigning a value and second one is reinitializing a value. You are reinitializing the value into the memory, which is always possible when you define by using a const. So it is always recommended to use what? Const. For state, you have to use const. Then in interviews, always this question is common. If I use const, how I will assign a value? You will not assign a value, you will initialize a value. And every time you initialize memory and you define. And one more important, so you know in your JavaScript, you have learned, suppose what you learned in JavaScript is some x equal to new class and x equal to class. What is difference between these two? So you know that when we are allocating memory using new and without new. So when you are allocating memory with new, it is a dynamic memory. It is a dynamic memory. Every time the memory will reset. And when you are not allocating with new, it is a static memory. Once the memory is allocated for first request, the same memory will be used across any number of requests. So use state is a hook which will not use any dynamic memory. It will use what? Static memory. And what is anywhere in JavaScript, if you see new, that means it is dynamic. If there is no new, that means it is static. So here one more point is, so another important question. What type of memory is allocated for state? So here for state, that means here the point is use state. So it allocates allocates static memory. So memory allocated for first request and the same is used across requests. That is the point. Memory allocated for first request and the same is used across requests. So these are all basic points about how we configure the state. So now initializing values, we will see how to do that. How we can initialize a value. So first in our project here, I will add a new component. So let's add one new component. In the components, I will add a folder, data binding. Okay. And I will add a file, data binding dot JSX, and export function data binding. And it will return a simple JSX. I'll just keep a heading as data binding. And I want this to start. So we will go to index And in index, we will import that data binding. We have to import data binding, and we need to use that data binding in startup. Remember, until we learn proper navigation concept, every day when we are practicing examples, we will try one component and we will put that in the startup. Later, what we will do is we can create one application. It will always start with the same component, and from there we can access all. That means like home page, about page, contact page, we can create navigation. But till that moment, we have to first create one component, design it, and keep it in the startup. Keep it in the startup means you have to keep that in a index.js. Okay. Now I will save this. Let's see the data binding is working fine. Because it is using Bootstrap, I will set it a class as container. Now it will be little better in data binding. So here container fluid I will give. Okay. That's a simple one. Now here, let's store some data. How to configure the data? We have to define constant and product name and set product name. We need a getter and setter. It uses the memory by using useState. useState is a member of React library. You have to import that useState from React. So now here we can initialize some value by default. So I will give some value by default, and we are accessing the value and displaying. Here we say some product name and binding expression, and by using the getter. And you can see that it is going to get that and display. We don't need any DOM methods, just we need to access the data and use it. Now, how do you initialize a new value into it? For example, I declared it as empty. That means there is nothing there. How do you initialize some new value into it? So you see it is empty now. How to initialize a new value? So here I am trying to define here a product name. So this is the product name. We are trying to define the product name. And into the product name, we want to store some value. So this is some value. This is invalid. Why? Because you are using a getter. Getter is for only reading. How do you store the value? By using setter. Okay, I am defining the setter now. How to define the setter? Set product name. And it will not allow assignment of values. You need to again initialize the memory. Into the memory, we have to define the new value. New value, I define some Nike casual, something like this. But observe carefully here when you configure that it is not there. Now here you see that there is one error. One error is too many re-renders. React limits the number of renders to prevent an infinite loop. What does this means is, actually, you declared something and you are trying to initialize some value. And you try to initialize some value in that particular function. Generally, what happens is it is going to do this action again and again repeatedly. That means this action you defined, any function that you define, it tries to means actually any assignments, any initialization you define, it tries to repeat it. That means it will repeat infinite times. Infinite times it is going to set this. And React prevents, because infinite times if any action is performed, it will stop. it will say that this is not valid. This is not good for application. So then what you have to do is you have to tell not infinite times, only when you want to initialize this. That means only on a particular situation, it should be initialized. You cannot initialize any value directly. You cannot initialize any value directly because here the problem is, so an important note you need to know. Component renders into virtual DOM when requested by client. So the assignment assignment and initializations. The assignment and initialization of values in component will repeat the rendering. The assignment and initialization of values will repeat the rendering. So React will not allow re-rendering infinite times. React will not allow re-rendering infinite times. So it will not allow re-rendering infinite times. That is one important problem. Now the question is then how? Actually, in your JavaScript, what you have done is, in your JavaScript, suppose you declared some variable and you stored some data. I will show you your JavaScript way. Every time I am showing what you do in JavaScript because that is the background from where you are coming from. And you are using an advanced than that. In that case, you should know both different. See, for example, this is a page and this is a paragraph. And here we are having a script. And in this, we declared some name as TV. And the document dot, so we are defining like document dot query selector into the paragraph inner HTML. We are displaying name. So we are displaying the name. By seeing this code, tell me what will happen. By seeing this code, tell me what will happen. Nothing will happen. What do you think the name will be assigned to that inner HTML of paragraph? How? Have you ever mentioned when to assign? You assigned, but have you ever mentioned when to assign? You have a variable, you are having some data. So have you ever mentioned when to assign? If you haven't mentioned when to assign, then the page doesn't know when to do this. It doesn't know when to do this. That means what you do, I run this and you will see in the paragraph, there is nothing. Now you have to tell when this should happen. I hope you people know you can use on load. Am I right? On load is what? Body load. That means when page is ready, when body loads, when page is ready, now do this functionality. That means what we have to do, we have to write a function. What is it? Body load. On body load, do this functionality. Now it is going to work. That is going to work. There is no problem in that. That means you initialized a value. That's okay. You are defining some action on that value, which is not possible. Page will not do the action until or unless you tell when to do that action. You write body load, or you write button click, or you write a drop down change. Some event is required. Similarly, now the same concept is for React also. You initialized some value, but when you try to assign some new value into this, then it is confused about when to do this. That means component is confused about when to do this. That means it will try to do this at the time of creating the component itself, which is not possible, because at the time of creating component, state is initialized. At the time of initializing itself, you are assigning some value into this. Assigning some value, it is not possible. It cannot take. That means now component also requires a phase. Just like you used a body load. So component have a phase. So what is that phase is? We call it as component mount phase. Component have a mount phase. Mount means what? Load. That means you declare anything, no problem. But if you want to assign anything into the state, either you have to assign on a specific event. Specific event means button click or change or some event, or at the time of loading the component, you have to mention. And how you write the loading component phase? Loading component is called as what? Mount. Mount is same like a body load event. You can write on any event. You can write on button clicks and other events also. Later we will learn button click, how to write and all. But every component have a mount phase, and we have to define actions in the mount phase. So what is this component mount phase? First thing, component is created. Component is created when requested by client. So after that, component will mount. Component will mount after creation. Component will mount after creation. You can define actions. You can define actions such as initialization of values into state and other functions in mount phase. In mount phase, you can define actions such as initialization of values into state and other functions in mount phase. And how do you write the mount phase here? How do you define the mount phase? Is so the component mount phase is configured by using use effects hook. By using use effect hook. Component mount phase is configured by using use effect hook. Use effect hook. Already we learned that hooks are functions. Use state is a hook, and use effect is another hook. So you can define this hook And how do we write this hook is syntactically, we have use effect. Use effect uses a function, and it uses dependencies. A function and dependencies. Generally, we write in a shorthand way. Use effect will have a callback function, and we have the dependencies. You know, in JavaScript, we use arrow techniques, arrow functions. The shorthand way of writing a function is arrow. Arrow is the shorthand way. Now, what is this dependencies? I will tell you. We will see that. Until or unless you have any another event like button click on, change, or mouse over, something events are there. So you have to use this event to initialize your values if you want. You can use this to initialize the values. This indicates what are the actions to be performed at the time of loading a component. Use effect refers to component mount phase. So for example, see here. What is this dependency? We will learn about that. So this is not the right way. You can initialize. So, but you want to assign a new value, that is not the right way. So this is removed. Yeah. Now, what is the correct concept here is you need to use another hook called what? Use effect. Use effect is also a member of the same React module. So you have use state, another one, use effect. Use effect is a hook. It uses a callback function, and it uses dependencies. So here you have to define the callback. Now this dependency is compulsory. What is that dependency is? Now if you write like this, what does it means is perform a functionality at the time of loading the component. Now, you know, in your OOP languages and even in JavaScript, you have a constructor. How many times a constructor executes? Only once. A constructor executes only once. This also executes only once. That means at the time of loading component, it will execute once. But some modifications are happening in the component. In the component, some changes are happening. Then whenever change happened, it should load again, but it will not load. Because every component have a mount phase which executes only once. But a mount phase should execute again whenever any value changes. Suppose you modified some value, how you will see the updated value? To see the updated value, that component should load again. That means it needs a dependency, comma, we have to mention the dependencies. Dependency indicates, this indicates when to load this function again. That indicates when to mount it again. As of now, there is no condition for that. So if there is no condition, we will leave it empty. Remember, later we will have conditions. That means we will tell that if this value is changed, load again. That means whenever value changes, it has to load again. It should load again. So the point is, if you are writing the load functionality, you have to tell when to load again. The dependency is compulsory. And why it is array? Array type, na, that means because you can have more than one dependency. Suppose on name change, load again, on price change, load again, or some button click, load again. That means you have to tell the dependency when to load, otherwise it loads only once. So remember, even there is no dependency to load again, you have to mention about the dependency. It is mandatory. You leave it empty if there are no dependencies. If there are dependencies, later you can mention those dependencies. Later we will learn how to mention the dependencies. But as of now, even there are no dependencies, it is mandatory to mention this. If you don't mention this, then it will identify as a bug. It will say that mount phase have no dependency. Why mount phase has no dependency? Because mount phase mandatorily needs a dependency. If there is no dependency, you tell that there is no dependency. How to tell that there is no dependency? By writing an empty array. Why you need a dependency? Because dependency tells when to mount this component again. Otherwise, only one time a component will mount, and whatever changes you are doing, it will not update. But a component should update and reload itself whenever the change occurred. In that case, these dependencies are important. So mount phase requires this dependency. So whenever you write, this dependency is important. So what is the dependency? So here the point is component mount occurs only once. Component mount occurs only once. So if you want component to mount across various changes, then it is mandatory to define the dependencies. Then it is mandatory to define the dependencies. As of now, we don't need the dependencies. Later, we will use that. Dependency configuration. Dependency configuration is required. Is required even when there are no dependencies. That is important. Dependency configuration is required even when there are no dependencies. If there are no dependencies to modify, to reload it again, even you don't have any dependencies to reload again, you have to mention about it. It is empty. You have to mention. So now what it is going to do is it is going to define what action to perform at the time of loading the component. Any actions, any initializations you have to define using this mount phase. Later, you will have a separate session on component life cycle. Component have a life cycle. That means from the time component start to the component end, there are several phases. You will learn about those phases later. Initially, the first phase is you create a component and load the component. That are the two phases. Now, in this phase, what we are doing is here, now we are using set product name. And into that, you are trying to store some value into this. And what is the value? Some new value I am defining, some Samsung TV. Now you can see that the value is assigned. This is the right way. And if you try to assign a value, that means set product name is equal to Samsung TV. You are trying to assign a value into that. It is not, because assignment to a constant variable, it is not possible. You cannot assign. So what you have to do, you cannot assign, you have to initialize the memory again. Into the memory, you have to pass the new value. And now this is fine. That means it is okay. That's how we have to configure and define the data. In React, this is the mandatory thing you should know. Always keep the data in a state, and you can keep it empty. Later, whenever you want, you can send data into it. In various events, we can send the data. If you want the data to be sent at the time of loading component, then you have to write a load event like phase here. What is that? Use effect. Use effect has a lot of things, later you will learn. It can manage both mount phase and unmount phase. Later you will learn the complete cycle. Initially you use this to just initialize some values, and we can store the data and we can access it. This is one example. I will give this example. I added a component called data binding dot what JSX. In this data binding JSX, let me copy this. You have to import two things. One, you have to import use effect, another one, use state. And use state is to configure the state where you can store a value. And use effect is to define action to perform at the time of mounting. At the time of mounting, you can define any action. And what is this array? That is dependency. The dependency indicates when to load the component again, which is not required currently. Later we will see how to do that. Now, once you know these two basic things, that means now you learned a point where to store the data. In a component, don't use variables, use a state. And now you learned how to assign some values into it and how do we access it. Now we will see how to deal with different types of data. Means you learned JavaScript data types. What are the JavaScript data types? Primitive and non-primitive types, right? Now you should know that dealing with all types of data in JavaScript and React are almost similar, but some changes are there. That means every data handling is not same how you learned in your JavaScript. In React, some issues will come. You need to know about that. That means how to deal with different types of data in React. It is not exactly the same how you done in your JavaScript. Some are same, some have some changes. I will show you. We will see that. So what we will do now is we will understand handling various data types. Handling various data types. Remember here you are using JavaScript as a language for React. So here the problem of JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. You already learned that JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. So that means the data type of any variable is not determined, fixed. Even you initialize a number, later you can store some string into it. Implicitly typed, na? JavaScript is not a strongly typed. It is what? Implicitly typed. So the concept of that poorly data handling is same, but how to handle various data types? Let's see various data types. First important is your number type. In JavaScript, what are considered as numbers? In JavaScript, what is considered as a number? What are the numbers? In JavaScript, you know, number means it can be a signed integer. It can be an unsigned integer. It can be a float. It can be double. It can be decimal. It can be hexadecimal. It can be octa. It can be binary. It can be exponent. And it can be big int. These are all the data types of, these are all numbers. You learned in JavaScript that JavaScript number means it can be any of these following. So a JavaScript number type means it can be a signed or unsigned or a float or a double or a decimal or a hexa or a octa binary and exponent and bigint. It can be any of these types. So here you know that what is signed integer means it can be with a negative sign. This is a signed integer. What is unsigned means it is a positive value. What is floating point? Floating point up to 2 decimal places. A double is up to 3 integer values. A decimal is considered as what? So it will be more than 3 decimal places. Actually, here it supports 29, 21 to 29 decimal places it will support. 21 to 29 decimal places it will support according to the IEEE standards. Hexadecimal value means what? It will use an X and some value. So that is the hexadecimal value. So hexadecimal. Octa means what? It uses O as value. O. Binary means what? B as value. Exponent means what? It will use E as value. Bigint means what? Safely using a large integer using n as suffix. That is bigints. These are all your JavaScript number types. You learned already in JavaScript. No need to explain, right? What are numbers? What type of numbers are allowed in JavaScript? You already know. And these are all JavaScript numbers. Only the point here is what is new in React, I will tell you. This is already you know in JavaScript. This is all JavaScript number types. That means JavaScript will treat these as numbers. Any of these are considered as numbers. So it can be signed, it can be unsigned, or a float, or a double, or a decimal, or hexa, octa, binary, exponent, and bigint. So these all are considered as numbers, right? So you have signed, unsigned, all these values. I will just show you here. So that means how you deal with this. Just a rough point I will give here. I am configuring a simple, okay. I'll just keep a simple constant, and the constant is some val, and set val is equal to use state. And it is initially, I will initialize as 0. That means it becomes a number. You can leave it empty. If you leave it empty, no problem, because it is any type. It is undefined. You can configure anything. So set val. Into that, I am giving a value like 2e3. So what is this 2e3? So it is an exponent, 2 into 10 to the power of 3, right? So that means I will print that here is what? Val. We are accessing the val, and it is 2e3 is 2000. That means it is an exponent value. 0b1010. It is a binary 10. It is a binary value, right? So you have all these kind of values. 00743. This is an octa value. Octa conversion will be this. So we have binary, hexa, octa, different types of options. These all comes under which category? These all are what type? Number type. Now storing them and accessing them is same. There is no change, right? And what is this bigint? So any large integer is not safe to use. It will round that number. So to tell the compiler that it is a safe integer, we use the suffix as what? N. This is in JavaScript new. Already you know ES5, ES6 version. It is there. Bigints are defined by using what? N, right? Now here the number concept is whenever you are dealing with this number. So what are other concepts about number? Presenting number is same. There is no change. parsing is same. What is parsing? Same as in JavaScript. What is parsing? You have two methods. What are those? Parse int. Another one is what? Parse float. They are same as in JavaScript. And why you need to parse, you know already. That means a numeric string should be converted into number. A numeric string is converted into number by using parse int and parse float. So parsing is same. Verifying number is same as in JS. How you verify number? Is NaN. Am I right? Verifying number is same as in JavaScript. How you verify that value is a number or not? By using a method called isNaN. IsNaN will return true if value is not a number. Now, another point is, converting to local string. Local string is also same as in JavaScript. So to local string we use. Converting to local string is also same as in JavaScript. That means in JavaScript, you convert the numbers into local strings and it is same. Converting to local string is also same. So dealing with the numbers in JavaScript and React are almost same. There are no changes much. Everything is same. Parsing, same methods we use, parse int, parse float. And verifying whether it is a number or not, we use isNaN. It is similar. And converting to local string also same. For example, here, this value is, the value is some like this. So 57,000, that is the value, or 5,07,000, like this, this is the value. Now, what is the point here is, suppose we are defining price something and the value is this. And what is the concept of local string? You already learned in JavaScript, we can convert this into a to local string. To local string. This to local string is going to display 1,000 separator and display the numeric values. To local string is same. There is no change in that. And if you want to put a currency symbol, you know how do you put? In JavaScript, we use the language English India and we put the option style. What is the style? Currency. And which currency style? Currency is what? Currency is INR. Then it is going to display in a currency format. These all basics are same. There is no change. How you present numbers, how you present currencies in JavaScript, the same thing in React. There is no change in this. That means whenever you are dealing with numbers, presenting the numbers and dealing with the numbers, so it is same. For example, if it is EN-US and the currency is what? USD, then the number format and currency will change. And the currency format, so this is IN, that is IN, and this is INR. And this is the local string that you do, and it is same. Presenting number in a currency form is always same. This is same as you do in JavaScript. Just I will give a syntax here. So you are having a constant price and say set price. Suppose you initialize some value like this. So price dot to local string, and in this, and you put the options like style currency, and the currency style is INR. That is the basic way how you do in your JavaScript. That means how you manage the numbers in JavaScript the same way you manage in your React also. There is no much change. All those methods are same, functions are same, no change. And here, so you can crop values using precision and to precision and fixed methods. You can crop values using precision and fixed methods. This is also same. That means in JavaScript, generally what we do is we use precision and fixed methods for displaying numbers precision, fractions and numbers precision. We use these two. We use these two. One is to precision. Another one is to fixed. These are the methods used with numbers in JavaScript. The same methods we use here also to deal with the number precision and fixed. So what is this number precision and fixed is nothing but you see in general JavaScript, what we do is suppose it is like 00. And here we are displaying the value without local string. I am just using the value. Then what happens here is 57,000.00 and you can see that 00 is not there. And we want to show the fractions. Then how do you show the fractions? By using to fixed. How many decimal places? Then it will get into the 2 decimal places and display. And you want 3 decimal places, 4 decimal places, it is going to get that and show. That is to fixed. That means you need to set it to fixed particular. And if there is lengthy values, like suppose we say 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 like values, and actually to fixed will round that. I don't want to round, I want up to 3 or 4. Then here if I say, if I put as 3, then what it will do is it will display like this. And but however, this is going to round this 6 to the 7 nearest. We don't want like that. Then what we do is we use to precision. To precision is 3 characters we need to define. That means how many characters we have to do, or total number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? How many characters to crop? You have to put it to 8, then it will be fine. You will get those values. Means how many characters to crop. You can crop the number of characters like that. This is cropping the characters. This is not decimal precision. This is not decimal precision. That means from the beginning, how many characters you need. You can set the number of characters. Actual number length is how much? So number length is 5. If I say 6, then what it will do? It will crop up to 6. So you can crop up to 6, up to 8, like this you can define. So this is done by using what? So to precision. Precision is to crop the value up to specified characters length. It is not about round. This fixed is what? It is to set fractions. So to fixed is not about the value. It is about the fractions. And precision is about complete value and fractions. Syntactically, we said price to precision. And suppose we define 8 like this. Price 2 fixed and it is some 2. That means it will display like some 56,000. Like this. This is 56,046 like this. It will round to the nearest one. So JavaScript related, these are all JavaScript functions of dealing with number. When you are dealing with a number, you know how to present a number in various formats. How you present a number in a currency style, how you present a number with a numeric style without currency. These all are important. How you control the fractions to display. All these required, these are required. So that is same. And there is nothing new in React here. So all how you deal with the JavaScript the same way. Declaring the numbers, accessing the numbers, and using the numbers in React is same. There is no change. And anything else you have in your JavaScript number? One more point is there about your JavaScript numbers. JavaScript uses JavaScript math library is same in React to handle math library is same in React to handle various math operations on a number. You know, math are same. That means you know math.py, math.sqrt, math.pow. So math.random. So math.round. So math.sin, cos, tan, all these are same. There is no change. So in JavaScript, while working with numbers, you have done all this. You know all these mathematical operations, how to control on numbers, conversions, verifying whether it is a number or not, converting a number to string, and handling various mathematical operations on numbers. Because generally all arithmetic operators are not enough to deal with numbers. You need additional math functions. And JavaScript math functions you use in the same way here in React. There is no change. So I hope you are clear. So syntactically how you define is, suppose there is a const, so code, set code, something, and use state. Into the set code, so what you can do is you can use math.random, and you know what will happen. Math.random will generate a random number and return a random number. So the code that you print will be a random number. So how you use all the math functions in the same way. We will implement them in examples. We will implement. First, we are just learning difference between your JavaScript and React data type. Means React is not a language. Its language is JavaScript, but the way you present certain content, some issues will come. As of now, with number, there is no issue. How you presented your numbers in JavaScript, the same way you do in React. There is no change. All the functions I showed you now, they are all JavaScript functions to handle numbers. Next, important after knowing the number type, handling number type. Next important is a Boolean type. Boolean type, some changes are there, means some basic thing you should know. You know Boolean type. So JavaScript Boolean is the same in React. But one that means you know that it handles true or false. It handles true or false. But problem is React JSX cannot display a Boolean, cannot display a Boolean value. That is the problem. In JavaScript, a Boolean value is displayed, but React JSX cannot display a Boolean value. It can't show the Boolean values. So it can only use a Boolean value. It cannot show the Boolean values. So Boolean type is same in React, but only the point is in JavaScript, you can show the Boolean value. Here you cannot. It's not possible. That means, for example, here in JavaScript, so you have, okay, this page. So this JavaScript have a stock as true. And here we are displaying what? Stock. Stock is having true as a value. That means you can run this and see that true is displayed. That means JavaScript can show it, but React cannot show it. That means React cannot display the value. For example, let's go to the React now. Here, the value is a set value is true. Value is true. And here we will put here stock. And stock here we are using val, which is a true. And you can see that it is unable to show the value. It cannot show the value. It is unable to show the value. JavaScript will show the value, but it cannot show the value. It can just use the value. Then how do you show a value? How you will show it is true or it is false? You can use it. You cannot show it. Then you can do one thing. So here what you can do is here we can write an expression. That means I am using a ternary operator. You know, ternary operator question mark. Question mark is what? On true. On true, we will put a true keyword. Otherwise, we will put a false. As a string, you can present the value. Now it is okay. You can use anything. Now it is not necessary that you have to show a true. That means you say stock available. Or here you put as what? Out of stock. Now this is the value. You can use it. You cannot show it. And remember, in JSX, this is the JSX area. In JSX area, so will not allow statements. No statements. That means if condition, for loops, or any loops, iterators, nothing. You can't use anything here. Then how you manage any logic inside the JSX? Everything you have to do by using functions and operators. You use your special operators. In JavaScript, you learn special operators. JavaScript have special operators. JavaScript have functions. By using JavaScript functions only you can manage. You cannot use any statements. Statements you can use here. You can use here. You can write a condition, you can write a loop, anything here. You cannot write anything here. In JSX, it is not possible to define any kind of statements. That is the reason I have to use this ternary operator. That means suppose in this binding expression, if I try to write an if condition, it is not valid. That means you cannot write if val equal to true. You cannot write this. It's not possible. Then how you handle every operation that you have to do by using statements, by using functions and operators. And you know that this is a ternary operator. If val is true, then I will print as true. Otherwise, I will print as what? False. Or you use it and deal with any another type of reference. So booleans, one problem is there. You can't show a boolean value. You can use the boolean value. So what you need here, you can only use boolean. Hence, you have to use various operators to present relative content based on boolean. Various operators to present relative content based on boolean value. That means syntactically constant, stock, and set stock. Use state is empty. Suppose set stock is true. So if you write stock as simply stock, it returns empty. Then how do you manage that? So using a simple stock, question true, colon false, like this. What it is going to do, it returns true as the keyword, as the word actually, it's just returns a string. So first you are learning how to deal with different data types in React. So once you know how to deal with these data types, you can use these types in your design. So there is not much change in number, but a slight change in the Boolean. Booleans will not respond in the same way how you done this. And actually, one more important in JavaScript. So JavaScript Boolean can use 1 for true and 0 for false. So which is not recommended in React. Which is not recommended in React. I hope you know already. Boolean 1 is, Boolean true is 1 and Boolean false is 0. That means in JavaScript, it is actually in JavaScript true plus true is equal to how much? It will return 2. It will return 2 because JavaScript uses true with a numeric 1 representation. And this is not good for compiling systems because now we have a conflict with numbers and booleans. That's the reason it is not recommended. React leads to bugs. Later, when we use React with TypeScript, this is completely disabled. It is not allowed. So technically, always use only true or false keywords. So here the key point, always use only true or false keywords for Boolean. Always use only true or false keywords for Boolean. So not 0 or 1, generally which we do in JavaScript. These are Boolean types. So we have two important types. What is that? One is number, another one Boolean. Now we have other types that we will see in next session. right? The other types what we are having, we have a string type, we have a undefined type, we have a null type, and we have a symbol type. These are the primitive types now, right? So we also have a date type. So we also have non-primitive. Non-primitive is what? Array, array, and what? Object. Object, and we have a map. Map and sets are available. Set is no longer in use. We have map. You need to understand how to deal with all these data types. Then you can implement in example that we will see in next session. Tomorrow we will see that. In tomorrow session, we will see how to deal with what data type? String. And you follow the same drive link for notes group. After 1-2 days, we will share another classroom code. There we will share the notes regularly. But till that moment, you follow the same community group link, right? There we will upload all these notes, right? So tomorrow we'll continue then, right? Thank you.